Athens, welcome to the Classic City Business Podcast. Our mission, to connect our community to the local business owner. If you love Athens and love supporting the people behind our businesses, then you're in the right place. We get to know the people behind the sign. Some are legends, others are on their way. You're listening to the Classic City Business Podcast with your friend, your host, all-around great guy, and owner of Generations Commercial Cleaning, John Glutt. So get ready, buckle up. Hang on, here we go. Okay, Athens, so this is part 2 of our episode with the YMCA. We were talking to Shae, and she was telling us about her husband making rope, and apparently rope maker is called a lint head. So we're going to continue with the conversation from right there.
So my husband makes rope, and his family's they're called lint heads, and they've been making rope for 40-something years, and they have a plant in Crawford, and so they manufacture in the U.S., and then we definitely do some importing and exporting, but nonetheless. So the other side of me is very business, and then, so it's an interesting place, right? Like when you go home and your husband's like rope business is being asked for donations, right? And then on my side, I'm asking for donations, and so it's been a really interesting. That's
an interesting dynamic. It really is.
Right. It's very interesting. So yeah, my husband makes rope.
So hey, Athens, would you like to hear from her husband and find out about rope? Let me know.
I know. It's called Aiken Manufacturing, and my daughter's name is Mary Aiken, so she's named after rope and me. I'm Mary, and my mom and my grandmother, and she's Mary Aiken. And I guess that's kind of me. I don't know.
No, that's good. And this is what I mean when I say this. I know you thought, like, well, probably not me, but every time we say that, somebody says, oh, well, everybody knows everything about me. And then we come up with the rope maker story. Even though that's not you, it is. It's,
right.
That's hilarious.
I showed pigs.
See, there you go. So is this the 4-H? Is this the Madison County thing?
My brothers went to Jackson County, and one was in FFA, and so he showed pigs, and I'm 7 and 5 years younger than them, and he showed pigs, and so I was like, ooh, that's so fun. I just didn't realize when you showed them, they don't go back home with you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that was like, that was one of those moments where I was like,
is this one of those like Wilbur stories? I mean, like real life. This is like not a movie.
This and I tell everybody, like there were 5 people showing pigs, and my brother, we get to Perry, and I don't remember all of this, but apparently he can only show one. I was really young. And
how old are you?
42.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
How old were you when you were showing this pig?
Oh, I don't, like 4th grade. What is that, 9, 10?
Okay.
And so you have the little stick, and he was this huge pig. Anyway, there were 5. It's so weird, I know. There were 5 of us, and I placed 5th, and I was like, well, whatever I placed.
Yeah,
like,
that's good,
I'm a winner, right? I don't care. But then he didn't come home with us, and I was like, wow. I quit that day.
Did you really? That's funny. I'm sorry, I was laughing, and that is a funny story, but I was just laughing when I asked you how old you were.
Yeah, I'm like 42.
So guys, apparently that's a trick to find out somebody's age. You ask them about a childhood story and then ask them how old they are. That's too good.
It worked.
You did, absolutely. I can't stop smiling. I'm trying to ask another question.
So, listen, ask anything.
There you go. So, we're there now, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're friends.
All right, you're professional, John. Get yourself together. All right. Well, is there anything else about yourself? Like, obviously, you're at the YMCA, so this is a service-oriented job. And the way you described, obviously, you're not working a day in your life because you love what you do.
Love.
If the why is the answer to this question, it's okay. But is there anything else that your passion and in terms of giving back to the community, or is your time and energy consumed with this? Is there anything outside that somebody might not know?
I think that the why has been able to touch so many different areas, right? That it's really given us an opportunity to serve and or pour in elsewhere. So the cool thing about our why is that we've been very intentional to try not to duplicate services.
And I didn't even think about it like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of nonprofits in town, and man, are they incredible. And so, like, for example, the Winder YMCA, they have a food bank inside their Y, a food pantry, inside their Y. Well, we looked at that, But the reality is for us is Northeast Georgia Food Bank is in our backyard. And so instead of me creating something, we have a list of services that we send anybody to. Right, and that's just one small example. So, a couple of things though that have been.
You're not trying to be like Mike. Here's a reference for you from the '80s, but you're literally your own identity. You're trying to serve the community where the community needs to be served.
That's it. And so many people are doing far better work in their areas than I could do. So why would I even try to take that on, right? So we send them there. But what we are able to do is we've, just in the past, just a couple of examples, but Project Safe, I think, needed some stuff for one of their safe homes. And so we said, okay, well, we can do a membership drive, and if you join the Y or you're already a part of the Y and there were just certain things and you bring in something for their home, we waive a joiner fee or whatever we may do. And that allows not just me, but a lot of our members and people who support the Y may not have time to volunteer, and they want an avenue to help. And so we're able to bring our membership and let them wrap their arms around other organizations by just bringing something in that we pass forward. And I think that's something that we do really well. Like, our whole thing is we just want to be a backbone, and we've been here so long, and that does not make us experts in everything by any means, but we are very stable. We are a piece of the fabric, and we will support anybody out here that needs anything.
Is that your favorite thing about doing what you do in this business? If we call it a business?
Mm-hmm. It is. And, people also sometimes, Ys are different. So there is an element of earned income that has to be made, and that's going to be your membership fees and your program fees and your lifeguarding classes and you name it, right? And then there's contributed income, and that's going to be the folks who donate here. And 100% of those donations go back out in this community by way of financial aid. So a lot of our children need help, and I'm not turning any of these babies away. You can forget it. They are the spirit of the YMCA. The kids change everything. Oh my goodness. I mean, in the afternoons, the roof's blowing off, and they take their shoes off, and they fall asleep in these gyms. And this is when they are grown. When they come back to Athens, they come straight back here, and what they want is a hug. And you give it to them.
That sounds to me like that's where your heart is.
Oh.
Like that's the
that's where I started. And the whole thing with me in this position was, I'll do anything for this Y. You don't even have to pay me. I just want to be here.
Don't tell the board that.
Oh, well, listen, they already know.
Are they? Okay.
They know, and they're just like, no, ma'am. But I didn't want to, my wellness director, I did not want to be pulled away from the children. I mean, if you have to come back and see it. There's nothing like it.
We'll talk about that, because I would like, I shared with you some of the things that we're trying to do. I'd love to do something like that with you.
Oh, my goodness gracious. And talk to them. You should hear their Y stories. They're so stinking cute.
We'll get into that. I've got some thoughts, and I would love to hear yours. But guys, that's for another time.
Yeah.
Don't you be listening in on this part of the conversation. Who do you admire most? Is that going to be a tough question? She's got this look on her face, like, guys.
There's so many. So just my dad is just going to be one of those. I
had a feeling you were going to say that.
He is a different man. I've been blessed with unbelievable people in my life that have brought me up to be where I am. I have a middle school PE coach that really invested in me, and looking back, hindsight 2020, I thought he was so mean. He was not. He saw something and needed to pull it out, And then as far as Y work goes, Mr. Simpson, who's on this wall behind me, he's a former CEO here, has been an unbelievable mentor for me. Crazy enough, so we're the only Y that I know of in the country that we have one of our former leaders, Coburn Kelly, who's directly behind me, he's buried right out here on site.
So when she says directly behind her,
oh, sorry,
it's not a ghost. It's a picture. It's a portrait on the wall. Yeah. Don't get nervous, people. It's not that kind of podcast.
Come over and I'll show it to you.
There you go.
Yeah. So he's buried on site.
Okay.
This is before my time. He passed away in '68 when this facility was born. There are a group of men in this town called the Kelly Boys.
Okay.
Okay, all of these men were children under Kelly when he was the leader, and he was never a CEO. He was a physical director and led camp. So we also have Camp Kelly, which is its own shebang as well, and is the chapel sitting out here. There's a whole story behind that. So Kelly, though, there is a following called the Kelly Boys, and a book recently written about the Kelly Boys. Those men are all around this country. When I started, I didn't know anything about Kelly or the Kelly Boys, and I just had a lot of these men tell me stories about their childhood. When the Kelly Boys book came out, I read it, and he single-handedly has also changed my life without me ever meeting him. I mean, what he was able to do in this why with these people is bar none. You can't replicate it. It's so much so that we hold a Kelly Boy event in April. They come in from everywhere. And these are grown men who are retiree age. Most have retired. And they sit in a space and they cry telling stories about their childhood at this Y. Under this man. I mean,
that's incredible.
It is not anything that I've ever seen. So he's a huge, I mean, that changed my life. Mr. Laboon. I have so many. And I was brought up in here.
This is why it's an unfair question.
It
right?
is, because there's just so many that poured into me. The Tom Allens of the world. I mean, and they continue to pour in and believe in me on the days that maybe I don't believe in myself, because as fun as it is, not every day is my favorite day.
Yeah. It's funny because even people that we look up to, I'm sure Mr. Kelly had those same days. We're all human. We all we're not, 100 miles an hour, 100% perfect, 100% of the time. It's nobody's like that ever. So,
right.
But that's really interesting. It wasn't the intent of the question, and I love the fact that honestly it is an unfair question sometimes, because you feel like you've got to give due, and there's like so much value in each one of those stories, right?
Yes.
So, all right. Well, it's interesting to me that this is about getting to know you, and every time we do and we ask a question, it seems to come back down to the why, which says everything that we as a community need to know about you. And that's all great, good stuff. But to, just get a little bit more about, where your headspace is. What is a dream vacation? Money's not an issue. You do have to come back. You did not win the lottery and you're done. Although I know you would anyway, because I know where your heart is. But a dream vacation, 2 parts. One is where, and then how long is the perfect vacation? Is it 7 days, 10 days, 4? What does that look like in your mind?
So the perfect vacation, I think that I would want 2 weeks, and I would want one of those weeks to be at my house.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't get that a lot. I don't get just home time. The raw side of Shae is that I question myself as a mom every day. It is, when people ask me, Shae, what's the hardest part of this job? Being a mom and having my daughter while I was in this position. I feel like she gets what's left over of mommy a lot of days, and that is very difficult for me. So I think that just quiet and peaceful 7 days at my house, and no phone calls, and really be able to take a step back. That's impossible to do, and some go, well, make it happen. Well, you can't, because I am a part of so many people's lives, and I'm so blessed to be there.
I want to ask you for permission to put this on, okay?
Yeah.
Well, but you need to talk to Laura Whitaker.
Oh, yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
Yes.
Because she had a moment where she was about to walk away.
Uh-huh.
And I love that part of her story.
Yep.
Because I think that a lot of us need to hear that and take action in that.
Right.
But I love the thought process. I mean, I'm sitting here watching your face as you're describing that, like, but I have all these obligations. And it's not just like, well, it fills a need for me. You're literally responsible to other people.
Yes.
Right? So that's very layered, right?
Mm-hmm. It's complicated. It is, there's you feel so stretched when really you're just blessed.
Yeah.
But it's hard to stay in that mindset when you do feel so stretched, you know. So 7 days at my house is like,
Yeah,
well,
no, that's a totally different question,
truthfully,
wasn't it, about vacation?
I'm a busybody, so my husband often laughs and he's like, could you really be here for 7 days? I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And then
You gotta try it, right?
I know. Another, again, we're pretty simple people, so we like to. One of my favorite vacations was going to Sanibel Island, and we were there for 5 days, and then we flew to Oregon, and we drove the one. And we drove it down to San Francisco, and we flew back home. Anything that's like that. So I don't know if I have, I don't know. I think sometimes I would like to have an RV and do like 2 weeks with my daughter. Just be off the grid a little bit.
The thing I like asking, or the thing about this question that I like to ask is you get so many different thoughts and ideas. Some people have got a plan, like this is what I would do and I've heard the RV story actually. I've heard, people say, you know what, I want 10 to 14 days. I want 2 days before I leave so I can literally like decompress from work, right? And nobody knows I'm home because they know I'm gone, right? Then you do the beach or wherever, and you do that. Then you come back 2 to 3 days prior before you have to be back at work so you can, again, refocus. So you have these bookends of days, right? Which I thought was great. And then I've, had people tell all kinds of different stories about what going overseas for a month and, doing these big trips. But everybody has these different, ideas and concepts. It's always fun, especially when family's involved.
I know.
Because I had one mom ask me, and I won't say her name. It's on the podcast, so it is what it is. But she said, she had, I think her kids are like 4 or 5. She said, dream vacation. Are the kids with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I love them. I want to have time with them. But is there like,
Yeah.
So it's just funny getting people's insight of what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a hard question.
Favorite book?
The Way of the Shepherd.
Okay.
That's an easy one for me. So it's a very easy read, and I've read it probably 10 times, and every time I read it, I find something new in it, and I was able to take that book, and I'm an innovator at heart, so I don't like to sit on things very long, which my team is probably like, So I push the boundaries, and my poor team, I tell them, like, I keep my foot on the gas pedal at all times, and so I have to remind myself, like, woo, they're hanging on by a thread, So that particular book, though, was gifted to me very long ago, and it changed the way I train. And training is a big, I love to be trained, first and foremost, and I love to pass that knowledge on. I'm not a hoarder of information. Again, I will say it until I'm not in this position, but I never want to blow the torch out here. I want to pass it on. And so any information I have, my directors have, because they have to, right? And this is big. I mean, I'm working with a state lobbyist, and I'm just now coming off of being the chair of the Georgia State Alliance for YMCAs, and it's big, and we have a very large footprint in Georgia and a very large footprint nationally, and we have to keep up, and they are being pushed beyond where they thought they would be, and so am I, right? And that book about just standing in the gap for your people is a game changer. And I have now developed our entire training model for my directing staff, for our summer camp senior staff, for everybody, is based off of the 7 chapters in that book.
We'll have to put that in the notes for the show when we post it. I'll reference that. I'll maybe get a link from some website or something, audiobooks or something. Let's talk about This Is My Athens.
Yes.
What is your favorite thing about Athens? And I know there's a lot. You could have a top 10, and if I'm asking you for one, you can only say one, right? So there's not a bad answer, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, what's not to love?
Right.
It's small, and there's good food. And
it's a foodie town for sure.
There's good music.
It's a music town.
There's a small town southern feel with a flair. And I personally love the small southern towns, and it's very quaint, and you see everything. I mean, you said it earlier, but you drive 10 minutes one way and you're seeing something totally different. You drive 10 minutes the other way and it's something totally different. I just still go back to when I tell people about Athens, and especially when you're recruiting for jobs. This town, you're coming in and it's small, but it has 2 unbelievable healthcare systems. It has music, it has food.
And it's not Atlanta.
It's not Atlanta. I
And
mean,
that's
Loop
nothing
10
taken
is
away from.
not 85.
No, and that's what I mean. I'm not taking anything away from Atlanta. I'm just saying it's
not.
Smallest,
Oh,
big city.
It really,
Yeah.
you have a YMCA, you have UNG, you have Athens Tech, you've got the University of Georgia. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And one of the things I love about here is that I don't necessarily have to leave to get anything. I don't have to go
Right.
anywhere. I can shop here. I can go to the doctor here any kind I want. I don't have to go anywhere. And I choose to, but I don't have to.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that I very quickly fell in love with Athens in concept and theory. But then as you start living it out, like, oh my gosh, there's this. And one of the things I get a lot is just the fact that it's a foodie town. And it wasn't always a foodie town.
Right.
It's become that, which fortunately, when I got here,
Yeah.
it was. So I didn't know the years before. And the music history that we have in this town is really, I think it might be more than people realize. Mm-hmm. And that would be a fun podcast to do, is actually have some of those people, the T. Graham Browns, the B-52s, and some of those characters come back. We had somebody on a few episodes ago who's opening up a coffee shop. And REM used to live above that coffee shop right here downtown Athens. There is a rich musical background in Athens. And I was talking to Paul Kramer over at the Classic Center. In fact, when he was talking about service and leadership, it very much mirrored what you were talking about. And I kind of warmed my heart, like, yeah, this is Athens. This is my Athens. But he was talking about all the different identities that we have in Athens that we can be proud of, right? And his connects, they're working on some programs with the culinary stuff, even with the schools and, well, with the schools, I say schools because it's University of Georgia. It is, Athens Tech. That's another thing. A lot of people, when they think of Athens, oh yeah, UGA.
That's it.
It's not just UGA. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully with this podcast, we expose and explore some of those things. There's even more to be proud of, right? But I think that's really cool. That's fascinating. Yes. That's what I love about doing this podcast, frankly. So, favorite thing about Athens? Were you going to go with the foodie answer, or you just incorporated a whole lot of stuff?
It's not just the food. It's just that you don't have to leave. Everything that you want is right here.
So that's the answer. You
is,
literally don't have to go anywhere.
You don't have to go anywhere. I mean, you can.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, even from a healthcare perspective, I mean, we have the most. It's small and you can get to you don't have to go anywhere unless you choose to. You can do everything in this beautiful place.
Well, I'll say something. This isn't specific to Athens, but this general area. We are a morning/afternoon drive away from the beach. Mm-hmm. We're a morning/afternoon drive away from the mountains. We're literally a 5-minute walk to all the things you just talked about. Yep. So there really isn't, in my opinion, a better place to be. So I love asking that question because we get all kinds of answers, but that may be one of the best.
It's God's country.
You don't have to go anywhere.
You don't.
And you can do everything.
Yes.
All right. Let's see if I can get you one more. I don't want to put you on the spot, but because this is what I do, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Let's do it.
It's your birthday. You're going to go out for a meal. Where do you go? Favorite restaurant?
There's so many. So just a go-to for me is going to be De Palma's.
That comes up a bit.
Oh my gosh, best breadsticks ever. Love Last Resort. There's so many, right? George's Local.
What's your favorite dish at Last Resort? I'm gonna say this because they're just been
So
on.
here's the thing. You may have to edit this out. Don't get me in trouble.
Okay.
My favorite dish at Last Resort is no longer there, which makes me very sad. But they had a like Freebird chicken, or I can't remember the actual name of it. And literally, I used to go like once a week. They also have a very good wine selection, and then Celia's cakes. So they kind of have.
No, I'm smiling big because I'm sure Melissa would love to know that, but I actually had somebody on. I answered the question because I'm not going to answer the question the way you asked it because it's not one place. What I would do, there's this place right across from the Grindhouse that just opened up. It's
ZZ and Simone's.
Yeah. He said I would take my wife there. We would have whatever dish he mentioned. He said, then I would go to Last Resort and get, you know what you want to say?
Yes.
A key lime pie.
That's exactly.
Or yeah.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay. So that was very specific. Like, I love this about Athens over here, which that's new, by the way, right? The ZZ's.
Yep.
And then, Last Resort's been there for, 30 years, something like that.
Yes.
So I love that. That's a great answer. So sometimes when I ask these questions, I love it when people go, well, I'm not going to answer it that way because this is my answer.
Listen, the thing that you do in Athens is you go to one place for appetizers. You leave and you go one place for dinner.
There you go.
And you go to one place for dessert.
That is a date night,
listen,
right?
I mean, it didn't get any better than that.
I love it. That's the answer. And I remind people, and sometimes I've been reminded, well, this is my Athens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer it.
And we're very passionate people. Have you noticed that since you moved in? I mean, you couldn't tell us anything last year. It was like the Braves won and Georgia won. Don't even talk to us, you know?
Oh, yeah. Because,
yeah.
Top of the mountain. There's nobody better. Yeah.
Listen. But we are very we're very passionate people. I have learned we love our town.
So this is sports oriented, which I know isn't our show, guys, but that's one of the things you find out about, just people being passionate and describing people talking about this town, particularly when the Braves won and the Dogs won. You cannot be an outsider and talk to us. No way. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have or you wish I had?
No, I got a very interesting question. So last week working with YUSA, at the end, she asked me to just finish a sentence. And and she just said, Shae Wilson is.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
That's an interesting question to ask me today.
Yeah, I mean...
That's more ironic than you know. That's funny because, our identities are everything. They kind of dictate how we do life, right? So that's leadership, isn't it? Isn't that a leadership question?
Yes. I mean, it was so spot on, and I just thought, I don't know. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, how would you answer it, right? Like John is. I mean, what do you say? I think.
So let me be clear. This is my podcast. I asked the question.
No, it is my turn.
No. I'm just kidding.
It is my turn. I have just taken over everybody.
That's right.
This is the Shae Wilson podcast. No,
There you go.
But she asked me that, and then you start thinking like, what do you want people? Like, who are you really, and what do you want people to know? And that's a hard thing.
Well, those can be two different things too.
Very.
Right.
Very. I just summed it up. There was a lot, spunky. There's a lot. But I'll be honest. What I would want people to know about me personally is that I hope that I'm just a good person. And I tell people when I get to heaven, I just want a high five and a job well done. That's it. No hug. Just walk on in, girlfriend. You did great. And sometimes I think we forget to let life be that simple.
It really does. It really is. And, it's funny. I'm sitting here thinking, and you talked about getting to heaven, and I was just thinking about something I'd seen the other day. Somebody was talking about one of those reels, and he was talking about a lot of, prosperity stuff you hear from churches and stuff. And he said, Paul is like one of our heroes in the Christian community. And, you look at his life. It was not luxury. It was service with a purpose, and he spent some, the thing I love, I say that, the thing I love about that answer from you is because of what you do. And your whole life is focused on service. And I think you articulated that really well. And what I would like to believe and what I think based on what I've seen in our community is, I think, the heart of Athens is that. And I think every day that we as a community should be working towards that. What can I do for others? How can I serve them best? Sometimes it's telling them things they don't want to hear because this is where we are and this is what but sometimes it's just being there, and listening and looking at, hey, we have a food bank over there. That's not what we need to do. We should be doing this. There's a vacancy. And I love that mission. I don't know if that's your mission statement or the mission statement of your heart, but that's what you articulated today. So I appreciate that, and I thank you. The question was, is there anything that I didn't ask you? And that was probably that was another 2 for 2.
Yeah.
That was another best answer ever.
Now you have to answer it. Let your people know.
I too, and I think those are 2 different questions. Like, what do others see, or how do they think of me, and then who am I? I would hope the same thing. I hope that people would think that I'm service oriented, that I care, that I listen, and that it's about others first. In terms of who am I know this is a scary thing to say in today's world, but I'm a child of the King. I believe I was created for a purpose. I believe I was created by a divinity that exists and created this space, this world, and that we're all here for a purpose. And that's who I am.
Love that.
However, we all live our lives, and so it's not just about simply saying, hey, I'm this, I'm that. You have to go do things. You have to live. Life's not about works, but if, this is who we are going to be, there's evidence of that. For example, what you guys are doing here for the community. It's very intentional. It's very purposeful. It's not about, hey, I got a job and getting a paycheck. It's not about, hey, here's a place to come and hang out. It's about investing in those kids, in those people. And I say people, you said from 0 to the grave, right?
It.
When I came in, it was funny you mentioned all those different things because I was processing. When I walked in, I saw several elderly people walking out. I'm like, oh, so that's what this place is. It's more for the, And so you set me straight really fast.
Yes.
I thought that was good.
Yes.
So now you asked the question. So there it is.
I think it's great.
Like it or love it.
I love it.
Well, Athens, thank you so much for joining us today. That was a lot. And I love those shows because when they go that way, it's usually because there's a lot of great information. And I hope that you guys gain something from this and actually have an appreciation for what the YMCA is doing here. And maybe you'll come by, check it out.
Please do. We're here every day.
And so, Athens, until next time, go dogs! Sick 'em!
Okay, guys, we did it. We made it to the end of the show. Now that you've heard at least one episode, can you do me a favor? If you know someone you would like to hear on a future episode, you can contact us or have them contact us at podcastjohng@gmail.com or just message us on our social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Facebook. Just search the Classic City Business Podcast. You'll find us. One more thing. Please like, rate, review, and share. All of this really helps a lot. We really do want to connect our community to the local business owner. We believe this is a great platform to do just that. And thank you for taking this ride with us as we get to know the people behind the sign. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Athens, until next time, I'm John G. and go dogs.